Yep. Good evening, everyone. So yesterday we learned about how we can handle with data binding, right? So we saw how to use the data binding technique using one-way binding. We learned about one-way binding. So what is one-way binding? One-way binding is accessing data from the source and updating to the UI. But any change in the UI is not updated back into source. That is what actually one-way binding. How this is possible, example I will show you here. Means why it is called one-way binding. So yesterday we designed all this. Were you able to try all these examples? Data binding, have you practiced all this? Huh? Right? You need to, because in next level, I will give you some tasks, right? Regard the concepts, you must able to design them. Okay, right. So in the, why it is called one-way binding? Because I will show you a simple approach. Suppose I'm giving a text box. I will keep this course title and some topics are there. I will take a simple example. This is complex, right? So I will create here a simple variable username and some value, and we will bind this here one way, and username and a text box. Input type is text, and to this text box we are binding that text box value is binded with user name. And in the next line, so suppose I just put a paragraph. In the paragraph, I will just write here hello and whatever username is there. So the concept is nothing but, so we are accessing the username and we are displaying that username here. Username is present in text box. So what is happening here? There is a variable called username. In that some value is present. This value we are binding to this text box and also to this area. Now what happens is, if I make any change in this, that change should update back to this location, and immediately it should reflect here. Am I right? That means if any change we make in that, it should update back and it should reflect there. So if it is doing that, that means it is supporting two-way binding. If it is doing that, it is supporting two-way binding. See now, I typed here some name. I'm trying to type something. It is unable to type also. It is unable to type anything. That means it is not allowing even to modify. Right? That means it is only one direction. And not allowing to make any change. Why it is not allowing to make any change? Because you are accessing data from a variable and you are using it. And one of the main concept you should know that, so variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. So don't use variables for storing data in React. Don't use variables for storing data in React. Don't do that. So I just showed you variables to make you understand how to manage the data. But in reality, don't use variables for storing the data. Where to store the data, how to handle the data. Never use these variables. Variables you can use wherever you need immutable things, right? But then how you manage the data. So always recommended to use state. Always recommended to use state. You have to use state. What is this state? I will tell you. That means all the examples I showed you, there I stored some data in a variable. That is okay, because just you are learning one-way binding. You can try from variables. But in reality, we don't prefer variables. Variables we use for internally immutable operations. In reality, for React, always maintain data in a state. What is state? Why we need state? What is its role and responsibility? I will tell you. So the first question is, what is state? And why we need state? So what is the responsibility of this? For that, I will tell you a simple concept to get answers for these two. First, you should know that every web application uses which protocol? Every web application uses a protocol. Which protocol? Every web application uses the protocol HTTP or HTTP, yes. These are the protocols used by every web application. You know what is a protocol? Protocol defines the rules, how computers in web communicate with each other. The rules of communication between computers in internet is defined by HTTP. Can you tell what are the rules used for handling communication with email? Which protocol is used in emails? Any idea? Which protocol is used for emails? For emails, we use a protocol called SMTP. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. That is the protocol used for mails. Emails follow SMTP. Any idea about chatting messages? Which protocol is used by messages, chatting? Usually they use a protocol called MSMQ. Messaging service and message queuing. So these are all different types of protocols. Web applications use a protocol called HTTP, HTTPS. And very important is actually HTTP is a stateless protocol. Do you know this point? HTTP is a stateless protocol. Do you know this? Every web developer should know this. HTTP is a stateless protocol. What is meaning of stateless protocol? The meaning of stateless protocol is nothing but, for example, so we have a server. For example, we are having a server. And in this we have two pages, page 1 and page 2. Two pages are present. Now, user requested first page. When user requested first page, this first page is loaded on server. When first page is loaded on server, server allocates memory for this page. Server will allocate memory for this page. All the interactions of the page will be handled in that memory. Suppose in this page, we stored some X10, something like this. And I am navigating from page 1 to page 2. That means I finished page 1, I am going to page 2. When second page is requested, page 1 related, whatever memory is allocated, it is deleted, cleaned up. And page 2 related memory is allocated. So page 2 never knows what happened in page 1. There is no chance. Because the memory allocated for page 1 is deleted, cleaned up, then the page 2 will come. This is the nature of HTTP. That is the nature of HTTP server also. This is very good because memory is well managed. Memory is well managed. Stateless nature is good because after every page you are cleaning up, it's good. But this is a problem if I need continuous operations. That means I need to continue my operation, then it doesn't know what happened in page 1, then it is difficult. We need to carry data from one page to another, from one location to another. Stateless nature is good. What is meant by stateless? Stateless means, so HTTP uses the mechanism. So go, get and forget. That means actually, so go is nothing but, go is establish connection with server. Get is nothing but get a response from server. Then forget is nothing but clean up the response details. Forget is nothing but clean up. So clean up response details. Whatever response is sent, it is deleted. Response details. This is good. It manages memory, but it is not great. So that means stateless nature is good for server. Good for server as it manages memory well. But stateless nature is a drawback. For client. It is a drawback for client. So if he needs continuous operations. For example, I will tell you one real practical example. Suppose you open Gmail. When you open Gmail, it asked you in first screen, enter user ID password. You entered user ID password, server verified it, and it sent you inbox. In inbox, you saw there are 10 mails. After sending you inbox on screen, actually your user ID password is deleted from server. It is deleted from server. Now you clicked on first mail and it have to load first mail detailing. Then it will ask again login. That means now imagine for every page you have to log in. This is not good, but it is secured. It is not good because continuous operations, I cannot ask like that. That means to check every mail, you need to verify your user ID password. So that is the problem. So it is good, but it is also a drawback. So to overcome this, what we do to handle this? So web applications use various state management techniques. Web applications use various state management techniques. So what is the purpose of state management techniques? So what are those state management techniques? Like we have query string, we have like cookie, we have like session, we have like application. So these are different types of state management techniques. By using these state management techniques, we can maintain data and make it available across requests. That means these techniques will allow to store the data and make it available across requests. So query string, cookie, session, these are all different techniques. So we have to use these techniques. That's the reason, observe carefully. As I told you, Gmail uses cookies as their state management. Primarily, they use cookies. So if cookies are not working, Gmail will never work. For example, let's see. I will open the browser here. Any Chrome or Edge, any browser. Now you can see here, I'm using Chrome :/app settings. I'm using Chrome settings. In Chrome settings, I will search for cookies. You can see cookie settings will come. Here, cookie settings. Here, generally cookies are allowed, allow cookies. But what I'm doing, temporarily I'm blocking the cookies, block all cookies. After I blocked the cookies, let's open Gmail. I will open Gmail. In Gmail, I will enter some mail ID. And after that, I click on next. Now it cannot proceed. It will simply say cookies are disabled. So your browser have cookies disabled, make sure that they are enabled. Why? Because it can't maintain your data. Then this will never work. If you ask what is alternative, there is no alternative. Enable cookie, then only Gmail will work. There is no alternative. You have to use a browser where cookie is enabled. Why cookie is so important here? Because without that, it cannot maintain your data. Right? That is the reason cookies are required to manage the state. Like that, there are so many state management techniques. You will see different types of state management techniques in web applications. We will learn some of them. In React also, you need this. Of course, React is a web application. So we need to use state management techniques. But actually, what techniques we use in React is not enough for React. That is the reason React people use an extra third-party library that is called Redux. They use a third-party library, Redux. That Redux is used for managing state for JavaScript-based apps. That means React people extra use Redux. This is Redux. And this is not for React. It is for every JavaScript app. You can use in Angular, React, Vue, everywhere. ordinary JavaScript application also can use. Sometimes people misunderstand this and they think this is related to React. It is not related to React. It is related to every technology which is using JavaScript. Right? Now, what is it? It is a state container for JavaScript apps. Later, you are going to learn this. You will see how to use this. But initially, Angular, React like technologies, they need these kind of third parties. But initially, what is advantage of React is, so React implicitly provides state. React internally provides state to manage data. So we can use this state. Actually, React versions up to 17. React versions up to 17 state is available only for class components. But React 18 and higher versions provide state for function components also. That is the reason even today when you go to see some React interview questions answers, in many questions you will see what is difference between function and class. Generally, you will see this point where every interview question. So in every interview dump, you will see this. Class is stateful and function is stateless. You can't maintain state in a function. That is old concept, gone. That is now a function also can have a state. A function also can have a state. Now the latest React provides state for function components also. You can manage state for function components. So React 17, it is stateful, related to only class, not available for functions, but now it is available both everywhere. Actually, React 18 uses use state. It uses use state hook. This is a hook. We call this as hook or you call as method. It uses use state hook. By using this, you can maintain hook. You can maintain state for functions. That means it uses use state hook for function components. So it is always recommended to maintain your data in state. Not in variables. So how to use this state, I will show you. So here, important note, it is always recommended to maintain your data in a React state. Maintain your data in React state. So here, how to maintain state, how we can manage the state. Let's see how we can define this. So this is not good. So don't use variables and all for the data. I will remove that here. I will remove this username. I will not use a variable. Then how do you manage this? Actually, we have to import. Use state from React core library. We have to import this use state from React core library. Now we are configuring here. I will show you basic first. Later detailedly we will see that. Here we are using use state. Actually observe this use state. Use state is, let's go to the definition here. Use state, you can see, right click and go to definition. Go to definition. In Visual Studio, this is a good advantage, because see, you need to keep this as a habit, because I told you one method today. Tomorrow one new method may come. You can't join a course for that again. You must able to learn about that method by yourself. You may not get a proper documentation in their official website for that, but still you will able to note about it. You can know about it. That means don't depend on help documents provided by React website. Sometimes they may not be clear, right? In that case, you can explore anything by yourself by using this go to definition. When you go to definition, right click and go to definition, it will take to the definition from where it is coming. And you can see what is use state. It is use state is a hook. It is a hook. And observe here, actually it is defined as, you can see that this is use state hook. And this use state hook is using, scroll down here. That means that is use state hook. It will show you the various alternatives for it. It will show you how it works. It initializers and all. It is going to show you all that concept here. Now I will later tell you how to learn these concepts, means how to explore, because this is completely designed in TypeScript. The library that you are using for React is actually designed in TypeScript. That is designed in TypeScript. And we have to use from that TypeScript only. So you can't understand until or unless you are good in TypeScript. So after knowing some concepts of TypeScript, you can able to understand this, right? You will learn what is the concept here, right? As of now, it's a simple point actually. Observe carefully. This is a use state. And this use state, you can see it is showing that it is coming from React dot, which one? Set state action. It is coming from set state action. If I want to know detailedly about state, I have to go to that location from where it is coming. That means I right click, go to definition. It is coming from set state. Right click on set state and go to definition. It will take to that state. And you can see this state is coming from it. That state is coming from set state action. This is the type of that action. And when I go to that set state action, you can see better. Yeah. When you go to this type, what is its type? It is showing yes. It is using a reference. What is the reference? Yes. And it is having an option called previous state. It is of type yes. Actually we call this as generic type. This is called generic type. That is the reason later you will learn. Generic type means it can handle any type of data that you give it to it. Generic type means it is not standard with a specific type. Once you mentioned what type to handle, it will work only for that type. That means the nature of state is ready to handle any type. But once you mention the type, it will not allow other types. This mechanism is called as generic. Later in TypeScript you will learn. So the type of state is what type? Generic type. I will tell you here. See, I will show you. This is not right time about TypeScript, but just I am showing you one overview. Just for your understanding sake, I will add a demo.ts file, TypeScript file I will add here just to show you. See, I am writing here a function. I am writing a function. So this function is print details. I made it as generic type. And here I am using some X. It is of that generic type. Now, what is the concept is currently I am accessing print details. Into print details, I will pass a string type. Then automatically you can observe X will be string type. Understood? But later, that means X must be what type? String type. That means you need to store string. But see, later into print details, I send a number, then X is number type now. You try to store a string, it will not allow. It is not going to allow. This is the nature of state. State is a generic type. That means it is open for any type. But once you mention type, it will not allow another type. That is what we call as generic. So state is a generic type. Generally, state is an generic type. So this you will get more clarity once you learn TypeScript also. We will discuss how to work with TypeScript and React after JavaScript. Then you will know about all this. Initially, use state is ready to handle any kind of data. Now, you have to put any data. Suppose I write like this. That means now it is of what type? String type. That means you can set which type of value? String. Right? Then if I mention like this, it is object type. I mention like this, array type. It is number type. So it is Boolean type. Right? You have to mention what type. Suppose I am mentioning here string. Now, this memory is allocated. How to access that memory? How to interact with this memory? Into this memory, we need to send some data. From the memory, we need to access the data. So, state requires actually, here the state requires two people. Already I told you in the introduction of JavaScript, how you can control a property. You can control a property by using accessors. What are the accessors? We have a getter and we have a setter. And this state is managed by accessors. The state is managed by accessors. That means you need a getter to read value. You need a setter to store value. So state is a generic type and state requires accessors to manage the data. So reading the data is done by getter and sending data is done by setter. So this state requires a memory. We will allocate constant. Into that memory, here in the memory, you know destructuring technique. That means I defined in the square brace. I told you already destructuring. In this, we need two things. One is getter, another one setter. Another getter and setter. Actually, here, so constant, suppose I defined a parenthesis. Suppose in that I am using get, so here I defined as suppose user name and set username like this. But remember here, these getters and setters work like a property. One property for reading, another property for writing. Then how do we write properties? Not in this way. Suppose I am using here a curly brace. I am using a curly brace here. In this, I am using so user name and set username. Understood? Properties means how do we define? Property means in an object type. What is first property? Getter. Second property is setter. You can give any name. I given reasonably the word set, but you can give any name. First value is getter. First property is getter. Second value is setter. You can give anything you want. That means now whatever you stored in this, you can directly initialize some value. Whatever you stored in this, so whatever you stored in this, it is accessible by username. So here input type is text, and what is it? Value. Value is coming from where? Value is coming from username. That means we have to access that username here. It is coming from username. And the same username we will display here. What is it? Username. The same username we are displaying. This time we are not using a variable. We are using a state. Now you can see here. So there is no value there. There is no value defined into it. Technically, there is no value into that username, right? I will tell you how we can set the value, how we can access the value. We will see that. One small point is that we will discuss. But what is the concept here? So this is a username. This is what? Username is getter, and this one is a setter. Actually, the state related things we have to, actually there is a state option will be there. The inbuilt state will be there. We can define the state and we can access the value. So here you are directly trying to set the username and you are trying to access that username. So you can see here, let's go into the inspect. Now in the console, you can observe here. In the console, now you have some problem. So what is that problem? Yep. Yeah. In this, now it is okay. Now I am typing some name. It is allowing. But whatever I am typing, it should be accessed and displayed, right? We need to bind the value. We need to access and display the value. For that, you need one more concept to understand. What is that concept you need to know is actually, in order to get the data, access the data and use the data, you need to know about events, how we can manage the events. I will tell you. Let me explain this point, then we will implement this. That means this is not the right way. This is not the right way. I just explained the concept. We will implement with one example, you will understand that. So what is the concept behind this? First thing, what is it? How to configure the state. State in function component. State in function component is defined by using a hook. And what is that hook name? Use state. And actually use state is what type? Generic type. Generic means what? It is open for any type. It is open for any type, and also restricts specific data type, and also restricts specific data type. It is open for any type and also restricts specific data type. Based on what? Based on the value initialized. That means based on the value type initialized. Based on the value type initialized. Which value type you initialize, depending on that, it is going to manage. And very important here is use state. So we have to import syntax. I will import. So what to import? Use state. Use state from which library? React. React is the core library. From React library we are importing. And here you need to define in this way. State, use state hook requires a getter and a setter. it requires a getter and setter. That means what we have to do. So we have to use a getter for reading and we need a setter for writing. Reading and writing is managed by getter and setter. Getter and setter. So here getter can access value stored in state and setter can set value into state. Whatever is there in the state you can access by using getter, and whatever is there you can set by using setter. That is getter and setter, how you can manage. So here I am giving you the latest one, but sometimes in your companies you may be working with old versions of React, then you will face little difficult. Why? Because there the approach is little different. I will give you one documentation which guides both. That means in old version how, in new version how, what changes are there. I will give a document. You can go through that. So because all React based projects currently not using 18. And in that case, so this is a new concept in every React project. But now the new projects are started using it, it's okay. But old projects still you have to work with class based state. Class based state, later I will show you that, right? Initially, how we configure the getter and setter. So we need a syntax like this. So we need a constant. So, and we need to configure. So getter, another one, setter. And you have to configure use state. And here you can initial value. You can set the initial value. And what is the type of initial value? So it can handle any type. That means state in React can handle any type. Can handle any type. That means it can be primitive types or it can be non-primitive types. It is going to handle any. That means number, string, integer, boolean, null, undefined, and it can be array, object, map, anything, right? So that is how we manage the state. So always important to keep the data in a state and access from the state. And remember this state hook. So one point I will tell you, any React 18 hook cannot be used in class components. That means today you are learning this hook in a function component, but your project is all designed with class components. There you want to try to use this hook, use state, it will not work, because use state hook is only for function components, not for class. In class components, never try to import and use the hooks. React hooks are only for function components, not for class components, right? One second, I will be back. Okay, so let's see here. How do we deal with these components in class? State hooks later we will see. In class, you don't need any state hook. Inbuilt, it is having a state. We can directly use it. That you will see that. Initially, let's create this and see. Now here, one more point is there. So these accessors, when you are defining, let's see. I will remove this and just keep the references. So first you imported this, and remember, first step what we have to do, we need to import use state. After that, you have to configure. So constant, it's not necessary to use constant. What you can do, you can use LET or var also. But in many interviews, they ask like, why you always everybody refers constant. That means this is a common question, like, because they ask like, why everybody for state uses a constant? Can't we use LET or var? Can't we use LET or var? What is the nature of constant? The nature of constant. The nature of what is the nature of constant? Constant means it must be initialized, right? So if anybody asked you a question, so like why state is configured with the const, answer is nothing but you cannot use state without initialization. That means state must be ready before you start using component. Understood? After you started using component, you cannot allocate state. Understood? That means state must be ready at the time of creating the component, at the time of initializing the component. That is the reason state must be ready before you start using the component. Then what is, because var means what? Var allows assigning. LET also allows assigning, but state cannot be assigned. State must be initialized. So that is the reason. That means once you define state, it cannot be assigned, reassigned. State means component is initialized with the state. Component is not assigned with the state. Understood? That means the concept here is component is initialized with the state. Initialized with the state, not assigned. Var and LET allows assignments, then that is a problem. So that is the reason we use that const, right? So constant. Now destructuring technique. Destructuring technique means we have object destructuring, we have array destructuring. Two options are there. We can destructure object and array. So actually, we can use both techniques. We will see in different scenarios. Generally, what is the destructuring technique? We need two properties in a square brace. One property is getter, another one is setter. So that means I will give username and comma, another one set username. I am defining like this. And actually, both are not required. Suppose if I don't give this one, what does it means? There is no setter. That means if there is no setter, it is only read only. Only getter is there means what? It is read only. It will not allow to store the value. As of now, if you are only showing the data, then you can keep as read on. There is no need of setter until or unless you store some data into it. right? So as of now, you have to define use state, use state. And what is that? You define some John into this. Now we need to bind that as a value. That means in the value we have to bind, what is it? Username. Here also we have to bind username. We are binding that username. That is the text we have here. That means what is the value you entered, it is stored inside this. And now I am clicking here and typing something. It is not allowing. Why it is not allowing? Still it is one way binding only. One way binding only. And it doesn't have a setter. Na? Okay, we will put a setter here. What is that? Set user name. A setter is there. But important, after you define the setter, here I click and type, it's still not working. Why? Because to set a value and to manage the value, you need explicit functionality. Explicit means you have to write events. You have to write events. So we have to define events on click, on change, on blur, on the event. We have to set value into that particular state. This is two-way binding. So that is the reason React will not support two-way binding. I am not discussing two-way binding here. I am just discussing how to properly store the data. Don't use variables to store the data. You always use what? We have to use state. State. Now two-way binding also we will see how do we manage the two-way binding and work with two-way binding. Initially the configuration of state will be like this. So I will show a simple syntax here. First you have to, I will copy this one, that is enough. This example I am copying here. In this what we learned, how do we configure the state, how to store data in it, how to access. Now you can put any kind of data in state. Don't use variables directly. So now what I will do in the next step, suppose I am creating here state as what? Categories. And here it is having the data. What type? Array. And I am defining suppose some electronics. So I am defining like footwear, like this. Now I want to access this and use that here. I will create an ordered list, and here what we are doing, categories dot map. We are reading every category, and every category we are printing as a list item, and here we will print the category, and it should have a key. Key is a category, and this is the data it is going to display. Now every kind of data you have to manage, every type of data you have to manage in this state. Don't directly use variables. You have to manage data by using state, right? This is one concept. That means how we can define the state and interact with the state. Now here you try others. That means just replace with an object, array of objects, and everything you can do it, right? Now our concept is to understand how two-way binding works. That means how we can manage two-way binding. So let's see how the two-way binding concept works. This is one-way binding. So how two-way binding works? What is two-way binding? Remember, React will not support, React doesn't support it doesn't support two-way binding. Understood? Two-way binding. So what you have to do is you have to implement explicitly. You have to implement explicitly. Explicitly we have to implement. Explicitly how we implement? By using events. But events is a very big concept. In React learning about events is a big concept. Separately, we will have a session on events, but just I will show you the point here. So basically one event we will use, later others you can understand. Suppose see now here, we will create a simple, so yeah. So here we are creating a simple form like, so user name. So here I say register user. Okay, I'm just giving a data list with a data term, so user name, and just give a data definition with a text box, input type as text. Okay, now what we need to do here is we need to configure here. We need to define the value like this constant. We need a configuration of, so get user, just I will give user name, and setter we need set username, set username, and it is related to use state. In this, what type it is? String. General empty string I configured. Okay. Now, whenever user types, I can just keep here. I'm just using value. To the value we are binding. What is it? Username. And whenever user enters data, we need to collect the data and update. So when user making any changes in this, I will display the data below. We will say hello. And what is that? User name. That means whatever username is there, it is going to display. Currently it is empty, nothing is there. Now we need to collect the data here and we need to update into this location. When to do that? When user is typing. I hope you know JavaScript events. You know JavaScript events. JavaScript events on click, on blur, on change, on key up. Here we have to use on key up. We are using on key up. On key up. So on key up. So I am just using here what we have to do. On key up, we are writing some function name. Function name is nothing but, so handle user name. That is the function. Now remember, this is just function pointer. Already, I will tell you about functions events in a separate concept we will discuss. Now we need to write a function here. So what is the function? Function is what? Handle username. What this function have to do is whatever they collect entered inside this text box, whatever they enter inside this text box, that we have to store inside this username. Understood? Whatever they entered inside this text box, we need to collect and store there. Now the question is how to collect the value from the text box. Whatever value entered in text box, how do we collect this value there? That means whatever they are entering in the text box, this must be collected here. We must collect the data here. I hope I told you already that here we don't use DOM manipulation. It means get element by ID, tag names we don't use. Then how we will pass? In JavaScript, you might have learned event arguments. Am I right? In JavaScript, you learned event arguments. I hope you learned now. In JavaScript, event arguments, every event have two arguments. One is this, another one is event. This will send information about the object and the event will send information about the event. So in React, we have an event argument that is E. That means only one event argument is there. This is a formal parameter. You can give anything. Now this can access the value entered in this text box. how to access the value entered in text box. First, you test whether it is working or not. That means, how do we test? I will put an alert. So hi, I will just put an alert hi. And you can see here, I click inside and type something. It is showing hi. So that means function is working. Function is working. So here on key up, we are pointing towards that function. Now this function have to collect the data from this text box. I will just put here console.log, and here I am accessing event. Have a target. Target dot value. Target dot value. Later, I will tell you detailedly about events concept. But everybody who knows JavaScript, he knows this. Event arguments, how to access and use them. Actually, this is the value. Suppose you see now, I will inspect here. And in that, I will refresh here. I will show you here. So in this console, let's go to the console. In the console, you can see it is read only. I will just put here, remove this name. Yeah. Now this is just, I am referring this. Okay. Now you see, I click inside. I am typing something now. It should get that and display. That means whatever value you are entering, it is collected. This value, you need to put it in the state. We have to put it in the state. How do we put it in the state? What we have to do? So we have to define, so set username. Set username. Into that, you can see it is expecting the value. And observe carefully the value type, it is a string. Because it is a generic type. I showed you just now as generic type. Because based on what type you mentioned. Suppose it is 0, you see 0, and you can see set username, it is going to access number. That is the nature of generic type I just showed you. It will change, right? That means now I am defining a empty string, and here we are accessing. What is it? String. That means e dot, what is it? Target dot value. E dot target dot value. This is a setter. What this setter is going to do, it is going to set this value into this location. That means it is going to store this inside this location. Am I right? Store here. That means we are going to enter here some value. It is going to display. That means it is displaying the data, presenting the data. For example, see now, here there is some ready-made data. Am I right? If there is some ready-made data, one-way binding is already working. David is there now. One-way binding is already working. Now I entered anything inside, it will update. This is two-way binding. So, but this requires lot of events, event handling. So this is not required with events and event handling in many technologies that support two-way binding. For example, Angular supports two-way binding. In Angular, without writing such complex events and all, whatever you entered in UI, it is updated back. But React, that is the issue of React, it doesn't support two-way binding. But one-way binding is good, but two-way binding we can implement explicitly by using this mechanism. You need lot of, what is that? Events. You need lot of events. That means you have to implement explicitly. So two-way binding requires event handlers, events in React. Later, I will tell you detail about events. As of now, don't worry, because That is a separate topic we have to learn. But just to show you two-way binding, I just used one event. What is that event? So that is key up on key up. That means I will just give this example. One more time, I will explain here. See, I'm just giving this example. I will copy this, right? Because the way how it handles is important. Okay, let's create a simple good interface form for you to make you understand in a clean way. See what I am doing. I will really delete this and I will create a simple good form here. Like let's create a div with a class name as call row, and here I will create a div with the class name as call some 3, and another div with the class name as call 9. And here I'm, because we are already using Bootstrap, I will use simple data definition. Suppose name is coming from input type text. Input type is a text. Okay. After that, I am defining price. So data term. Okay. And data definition, input type is suppose input type is number. I'm using a number. Okay. I will use another option here. So data term, some city, and data definition. I will use a drop down. Drop down will have an option. I have some Delhi and option some Hyderabad, so that you can understand how to collect data from different types of elements. I'm just giving that. Okay, let's create another data term. And here I will give stock, and data definition. I will use class name as form switch. Form switch is a different look for checkbox. Huh? So input type is equal to, suppose I am giving checkbox, and checkbox will have a class called class name called for, yeah, it have a class name that is form check input. Okay, and here I said available. Okay, this is the form we designed. This is the form. In this form, we have a text box for name, price, number, and drop down, and a stock. Now, whatever they are entering, we have to collect and display. Whatever details they are entering, we need to collect and display. So that data we need to collect and display. So how you will manage? So this various ways are there. Suppose I am defining here a simple a tabular form or just data list again. So in the term, I will give name, and beside this, I need to display the name. When they are entering the name, that name must be displayed here, right? We need to just manage that. So is it okay? I think some size, yeah. Now the name, what they entered must be displayed here. So this is a form. We have a form like register. And here we have a form like details. Details. So now tell me how we can access the data and display here while typing. Same concept, we have to write event. We have to write event for every element. This is a lengthy process. And it is in the same way you have to do in React. Developers are not satisfied. That is the reason if they have to work with forms, developer says that I'm not interested in React form. I will use a third-party form. That means React developers use a third-party forms to interact with the forms, because the React way of interacting is very lengthy, very complex. We are not interested in that. but still we will see that now. How do we do? Every concept you have to declare. So let's see, suppose I am creating here. So I am creating a constant, and here we are defining first what? Name. Another one, set name. I am defining use state, and this is a string type. As of now, you see this. Gradually, we are going to reduce this and make it more simple and more perfect, because this is the first attempt. We have to learn the lengthy process. Gradually, you are going to learn all tricks and techniques to make it simplified. Okay. Okay. Next, what is it? Another constant. What is it? Price. So we have set price is equal to use state, and this is a number we need to define in this way. Now similarly, constant, this is what? City. We have set city, and it is use state, and it is also string type. So, and another constant, so we have stock. We have set stock, and you have to give use state. This is what? Boolean. Boolean means some false. Now these details we need to collect and display, and very important, we need to set them. That means for every element we have to write logic. So that means we need a function name change function. On name change, we have to collect what name they are entering and set name e dot target dot value. That's how we do. Similarly, all these options, another one, what is it? Price change. We have to set price. I will show you shortcuts after this, right? First we are dealing with all function, then another one is city change, set city e dot target dot value, that is drop down value. And here we have function, that is a stock change, and here we are using set stock e dot target dot checked, because it is a checkbox na. It is a checkbox can have a value also, but checkbox usually identified selected or not by using which property? Checked property. Now these methods need to be binded with every element. That means here what we have to do, we use simply on change. On change means even a value change is also change. On change, what is it? Name change. Here also on change is equal to price change, and here on change is equal to city change, and here stock on change is equal to stock change. These are the options we are defining, and these details we need to print here. Name will come from, what is it? Name na. That is the name reference we are having. And here we are defining another, what is it? Price. Price is data definition. It is coming from price. Another data term, city. City is coming from, so city. Another one is, this is data definition. Okay. And another data term, so this is stock. Stock is coming from stock. So if stock is equal to true, I will set as available, otherwise out of stock. Now this is lengthy, right? Now you see here, and you see these all details are there, and I am entering the details, and it will collect the details. I am entering the details, it will get that. City I am choosing, it will access. Stock, it is available, out of stock. Now this much I have to do. By seeing this, JavaScript person says my JavaScript is better than React. Right? Obviously, he will say, because we don't need this much complications in JavaScript. So React have these kind of drawbacks, but React does in the same way. That is the reason developers will never use this way every time. We have third party forms. We have third party libraries. By using those libraries, we can simplify this. Very simply you can handle. Those techniques you will learn later, but our concept is not forms here. Just to understand how two-way binding works, how the concept of two-way binding works. One-way binding, another one, two-way binding. This is one simple example, right? I will copy this example also. I will copy this example also. You can try this. This is for two-way binding, right? Now, once we know this, now we will see how we can really work with real-time data. Real-time data means APIs. How we can work, fetch the data from API, create the presentations and handle the interaction. That we will see in next session. Tomorrow we will do that, okay? In tomorrow's session, we will learn how to interact with APIs and work with the data coming from APIs, okay?